Thank you for being with us, and looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much. And to all those that are watching from all over and wherever you are, thank you for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. The topic for today is a very broad one, and I expect that there'll be quite a bit of questions at the end. So I'm going to try to ensure that I keep enough time for everyone to ask the questions they want. And I will share a deck and some slides. And I operate my company from a policy of very much an open book. So all the data you see in here, or any slide I'm showing, is our actual data. And I'm happy to speak to anything at the end of the slide. So welcome. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Just give me a second. I hope everybody has my LBC deck visible to them. So LBC, we're a publishing and developer based out of Vancouver, BC. And our topic for today is how LBC Studios used our social media and some innovative marketing strategies to grow our main game, Hempire. So a little bit about myself. I am the co-founder of LBC Studios. I'm also the acting CEO. I am a serial entrepreneur. I entered the tech and mobile gaming industry to start LBC and actually have zero background in the industry prior to that. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have started a couple companies in a couple different industries, but I have definitely found my passion in mobile gaming, which was the main purpose for joining this industry. And I now do act as a tech startup advisor through early stage for several small startups, especially in the app ecosystem. In life, the reason I started LBC was really to facilitate a balance of quality of life. And a lot of people in the gaming industry have told me, as you know, I've spent some years in it now, how often that balance doesn't really exist. So that's something we really foster at LBC, and try to support both my own personal passions, but also our team's passions and values and how we work. So I'm happily married. I've got a couple kids. I love competition and sports. I travel a lot. That's why we got into tech. And again, I really value quality of life. So who is LBC? I think it's probably important I briefly touch on this just so you know, when we talk about growing games, sort of the scale of what LBC has become. So we were founded in 2015 by myself and my business partner, Dennis. And as I mentioned, neither one of us comes from the gaming background or the tech background for that matter. The story we often say is we were just basically two fools with a dream. And we had the dream of building the world's most popular cannabis game. And we started from that. And I won't go too much into the history of it. But today we are now a full development and publishing studio with 35 full-time people. We are all based in Vancouver. We do everything in-house except for localization. Our vision at LBC is to cultivate the freshest interactive experiences in the mobile world. From concept to publishing, our free-to-play games are 100% homegrown, an expression of our passion, commitment to quality, and driven by purpose that will be remembered forever. And we really operate from our values and how we approach everything, even marketing. So our core values at our studio are to think big, really be accountable, push growth, be honest, and chase passion. So our games. So this is the one we're going to be talking about a little bit today. Is Hempire. And Hempire was our passion. It was, as mentioned, our goal to make the world's most popular cannabis-themed game. And when we entered the market, there was other cannabis-themed games out there that had paved the way, but we felt none of them had really approached the content or the topic in an authentic way that really promoted cannabis in a positive message as we were on the cusp of legalization. So we launched April 20th, 2017. We have just celebrated our 3rd birthday recently. As we transitioned into a proper live ops model. We have had over 12 million installs to date, generated over 30 million in top line gross revenue to the studio. We do operate on a 30-day payback window, which is extremely short in mobile gaming. We have a monetization model of in-app purchases, which represents about 75% of our top line revenue. And the rest is through reward video as well as interstitials. And we have a unique marketing model built into our game as well, which I'll touch on briefly. Some of our big success points and how we used and leveraged social media is a real big focus on community and our players first. We have a full in-house community and CSR team, which we actually distinguish completely. CSR being very reactive to issues, community being very proactive and engaging our players across all of our platforms as well as in game to really empower our players to be the voice of the game. And as I noted, a very, very vocal player. So to give you a little snapshot into what Hempire is, I'll play you just a little brief video. And I hope the audio plays through and this doesn't glitch out too much for. It's been a while since I've even taken a look at that video. I hope you enjoyed. So as we move through, as I noted, Hempire was our first game. It was our passion product. And as we moved to a world-class studio, we've now had to adapt and obviously invest in ourselves and start releasing new products now that we have a deep understanding of our audience and who our player base is. So our second title, Tasty Buds, is in soft launch right now. Started in the Asian countries through the first phase of soft launch. We are in the second phase right now as we just opened up Canada and Australia recently, and we expect worldwide launch on August 3rd. One great thing as we move to a second and third title studio with a deep understanding of who our audience is, it gives us a tremendous opportunity to actually leverage some of the marketing strategies we're going to be talking about while appealing to our core audience without cannibalizing our existing user base on Hempire. So the challenge, and I'm sure if you noticed in that first video, our initial concern when we made Hempire wasn't whether people would want to play, but rather would they be able to download on the App Store. And our ultimate success was ensuring strong platform partnerships. You know, working with the policy teams allowed us to be published, but we did face a tremendous amount of challenges along the way. Adjusting keywords, languages, and marketing content has ensured that we often break barriers with advertisers by being the first in the space. We are the first, and I believe we still are the only cannabis themed game that is marketable on Google. We unfortunately, as noted, may face challenges with marketing as not all businesses have come around to the content or are opposed based on their geographical location, and we're still unable to release in several countries. So the major challenges we faced as we started from a concept to where we're at today, our first challenge was cannabis games and marketing content is often blocked, and with our video there, I'm sure you can expect much of that didn't make it on for UA. The second challenge we often face, especially as our game has aged, is traditional UA is extremely expensive. Your audience is very valuable. And some of the things we try to understand is how can we leverage all of our social networks and all of those mailing lists and everything that you build up as your assets to continue to engage and grow while continuing to keep costs down. And this especially applies as you move from a one title to a multi-title studio. And lastly, this is what we've invested in the last year, is really developing data-driven strategies in all channels that are extremely tough to validate to ensure profitability. The tendency is to fall in the comfortable places using like an aggregate partner to understand your Facebook spend and your ROAS on that paid UA. But there are many creative ways to leverage your social media, and there are many creative ways like influencers out there today that can be effective, but validating them is extremely tough. So get creative. And this seems to be the trend that we're moving towards. And I think this is a really important piece to touch on today. when it comes to UA, but when it also comes to leveraging your social media. We have plenty of tools out there on the market. As noted, there's the traditional UA on social, your ad partners, your influencers, all of the social media pages you build for all of your games. Community, an extremely important one. Leveraging player generated content, creative team validation, surveying spending players, and really knowing your audience. All of these are tools that we use at LBC, and we actually create essentially a full ecosystem and a full circle of engagement, leveraging all of them across our platforms. And we use each platform for a different goal for our user base. But having all of that content out there and having all of these tools at your disposal is only effective if you actually have a way to validate that success. So this is, again, something that we spent a lot of time on this year. There is no limits with creative other than being blocked by the networks for us. With cannabis content, this results in a huge level of creativity to convert ads to players. We regularly report on these creatives, and we use their overall performance to ensure we are iterating success, but also how we're engaging our audience on our social networks. We use Facebook specifically as a social network as our data baseline. For creative performance. It has some of the best background tools for us to basically experiment with new creatives on a weekly cadence, see what the algorithm picks up, see what kind of spend is picking up, and see what the ROAS and IPM scores on those creatives are. This really helps us flush out our best creative, which we can then leverage on how we want to engage across all of our social networks as well as our ad partners. So an example here at the bottom of the screen is our weekly reporting system. You'll see at any given time, we have upwards of a dozen to 15 creatives in circulation. The algorithms pick up, obviously, the top performers. We do rank those week over week to see if the winner remains versus its lifetime, as well as its IPM score. Typically, we're always looking for a high baseline IPM score, but sometimes a lower IPM can actually convert into a higher ROAS on spend. UA, and I don't think this should be overlooked. What I will say about UA, though, is the main goal of today's topic is focusing on social media, but I think it's extremely important, you know, for myself, coming from no experience in this 5 years to where we're at today. I attended a lot of these PG Connects. I attended GDC. I would often go listen to these talks and get bits and pieces of information, but not always the real guts of what I wanted to learn or really what I needed to visualize to validate my success. So I thought I would actually share how we do it on a weekly cadence. So it's really important you know who and what you are buying and its performance that's attached to it. And this is really supported by the previous slide with a strong creative process. Because of issues with content blocks, we have to really ensure we're monitoring our UA performance as well as our delivery and optimizing while regularly peeling content blocks. Social media is still crucial in finding valuable audiences, and again, in Facebook through UA campaigns that can then be exported to other UA networks, but also gives us some audience insights in understanding who our players are and especially which ones pay. This helps us in targeting the right audience. And so this slide you see here is an example of how our weekly reporting on UA spend on our top networks. This is specifically looking at Android on a weekly cadence. So for us, it's not about just saying we need X amount of installs or we're trying to fill the bucket. We're really driving a lot of our marketing from ROAS specific performance. And we have a buying model that attaches in organic uplift. And also, again, we're looking at a snapshot of our networks. Our network spend does fluctuate based on performance and based on our budget and business goals. As I noted, if you look over at the corner there, our D30 ROAS, our buying model is we are looking to break even at a minimum at a 30-day payback window. So know your audience. I heard this in the previous talk a little bit about the audience piece, and I think this is a really important one. There are many ways to understand your audience, and it is often possible that you can go down the rabbit hole that as you develop audience profiles and you market to that audience, you'll notice that you just seem to continue to have that audience and validate that hypothesis. So sometimes you do need to cast the net wide when you're building marketing strategies to ensure that your audience is not objectively being construed by some of the information that you keep filling it with. So for example, with Hempire, if it says people that play your game like Cheech and Chong, Well, if you start marketing to fans of Cheech and Chong, or if you start marketing to people that would likely like that type of product, you may miss out to the fact that people that like your game are also fans of particular music artists. So we do something different, and I think this is a really important piece about learning your audience, is having multiple data points, but also reassessing. And as you grow in size, not just learning about your audience through traditional UA and like audience insights and your game analytics and aggregated data, but as you grow your player cohort, I think this is a really cool thing we've done at LBC, is actually start surveying your own player base and surveying your own audience to really understand who you are targeting, and not just paying players. You can look at why people play your game, what their interests are. So this is a very surface level slide from one of our player surveys we did. We surveyed 100 spending players to really understand why they play our game, why they spend in our game, and who they are, not to be able to necessarily go market to them in another UA, but to have a better understanding of how we craft our games and how we engage with our audience and build our community. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, our game is really a platform and a voice for our players, and there's a huge built-in community in it. So at a high level, just wanted to share with you that, you know, we have a very even split between male and female, a very wide age gap, which actually is quite surprising. 18 to 65 plus. Yes, the majority of it is in the 25 to 54 range. But as we get into some slides about our most vocal players, you're going to be surprised as where they come from. So here's a brief player profile on one of our players. They provided this information to us. And it just gives you a sense of who's playing your game. So we have all of our players driven down by the typical like whales, minnows, and krakens. This particular player is one of our more active players, 5,500 USD in spend. He's been playing essentially from a few months after launch. He is a competitive player, one of our top players. And for him, you know, although we don't have it in here, you'll note that his income is quite low. This for him is a sense of community. This is his way of engaging and connecting with like-minded people, because our game is more than just that one player perspective, and you have the ability with the in-game community that we have in our forums. It's really a way for him to connect with other like-minded people. And it really shows you that when you think about building a game and when you think about leveraging your social networks, that it isn't just about advertising what you've made. It's about connecting people together. So now getting into the guts, make sure that I stay on my time. Influencers, a great way to leverage your social media. It's a great way for us to build it. Often there are multiple avenues of ways to connect with your players. We sometimes do things like paid sponsorship content. In this case, we actually paid Tommy Chong on an LA Weekly thing to do a review, but we thought, okay, that's great content. How can we leverage that to not only build our social network, but drive UA when we're dealing with all these content blockers? So in this case, we chopped it up. We used some of our other content that was approved, that wasn't getting chopped down, put in Tommy Chong so that we can create new content that we know is gonna get past there. And so again, I'll give you a quick, this is only a 10-second snippet on how you can create some really cool UA and some social engagements. So that's just a little snippet. So that actually came from like a 2-minute review that he had done. As I mentioned, we chopped it up. We found pieces that were engaging. We leveraged that for UA, but we also posted this to our social channels on social media. We had the ability to retag his social profiles as part of our paid package. So we could actually leverage our social media accounts, create a much wider audience by leveraging the influencers that we had paid to market our content. And we've been able to continue to use that and create new content to build our social influence, as well as drive installs to our game outside of our traditional UA paid content. What I will say about influencers, there's some serious key takeaways there. Measuring success is extremely difficult. We did usually use bit.ly links to track. There are lots of third-party companies out there that are trying to solve those data validation issues. We have in the past directly dealt with people, but when you're dealing with 300 to 400 influencers that are charging just a few $100 each time, it is extremely painful. But there is a ton of opportunity there. Community, so this is one I recognize my time is getting tight. This is what I'm really proud of. So this is Laura Hampson on the side there. She's one of our most vocal players. As I mentioned, our demographic is huge. I didn't know much about her other than I knew she was a big player, and a news article came out about her game, and she explained why she plays Hempire. That really, she was dealing with suicide and depression, and this really, again, gave her a sense of community. So all I would say on this slide is make your players your voice on social networks. Don't just be the one driving your message to them. Allow them to be your voice. And a brief example that I want to touch on as our time gets tight is how we connect all the dots. Most people try to drive installs through typical UA showing off game content. Sometimes it's good just to engage your community and allow them, like I said, to be the voice. So in this case, we did a contest in the COVID period where we just wanted to give some money away that had nothing to do with our game. We gave away a $420 gift certificate. We shared it across our socials. We just really wanted to see how that would impact our social engagement. And if we tracked it, if we could recoup that money just from direct installs as well. We only spent $700. We shared it across all our social followings. The results were, yes, we did get some new downloads that paid for half of the cost anyways, but on a really positive side is this, the social media gain, where you're actually building an extremely large following outside of your traditional UA that you can then leverage for future games, as well as re-engage your players. So in this case, we gained an additional about 10,000 followers across our social just from that one contest that ran for 1 week. And as you can see, for a mobile game, we built quite the audience with over 100,000 followers on Facebook and 30,000 on Instagram. This is just a great way to keep your community active. And a lot of the content that we do post, as you'll notice on the bottom left, has nothing to do with our game. It's just creative, engaging memes and information that allows people to really connect and want to share what you put out there and gets around the blockers of traditional UA. So last slide I just wanted to say is the mobile games industry is obviously constantly evolving. As I mentioned, I've been coming to these conferences for years and always get a little snippet of information that I try to bring back to the studio and embed. And I hope that I've given you something today that you can embed in your models. But I do want to stress that what worked yesterday may not work today. What works for you or what works for us may not work for you. But don't be afraid to try, and push those boundaries and try new things. There is no perfect playbook for a game. And for those that are just about to launch or are starting to see a lot of success, the other thing I could encourage is, with the COVID-19 pandemic we've been going through, we have seen a tremendous uptick in traffic and revenue. It's not likely the new normal. So adjusting to and monitoring this noise is extremely important as you're building out your buying models and understanding that this may not be the normal, so that you don't overshoot what success looks like. I wish you all success in your games and creative marketing strategies. And I hope we got a few minutes left for some Q&A. So I'm just gonna stop sharing this. And we're back.
Hey, Solon. Yeah, thank you very much. We do have a little bit of time for some questions. The first thing I wanted to say though is, I think it was the same on other people's end, but unfortunately we couldn't hear the audio for the videos. So say maybe if you're in the Discord channel, if you throw the links in the track channel in the Discord, that would probably help, because then everyone can jump in and check them out if you're okay with that. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. But we do have a couple of questions coming in from the audience. So the first one is from Jackie, who says, thank you for a great presentation. You have a great story. And she wants to know, how do you manage your community? Is it through dedicated managers?
So yeah, we actually have 2 internal community team members that have really built up the community. 1 manager per title essentially, but where our strength in the community actually is through moderators. We have dedicated players that are in our game that we've set up our own Slack channels with. We reward them, we send them gifts. They are basically the voice of our game. And we have 20 full-time at any given time, and they are not paid. They are just passionate players.
Okay, that's really interesting. And another question we've had is, have you ever had any difficulty dealing with influencers?
Lots. The short answer is lots. I was actually going to add that to my slide and just show you an Excel sheet of who we've dealt with. Because a lot of influencers, when you're looking at the smaller like Instagram channels that may have 10,000 to a couple million followers, you need to use a lot of them to understand which ones do and don't succeed. And you have to pay them all, and they all operate on different systems of communication. So More often than not, I found that it takes a tremendous amount of time to communicate with all of them and actually get them to post. You do need to review to actually prove that they post, because they often don't. And then actually getting them to put what you want to post and properly with the proper links doesn't happen very often. So we are finding now that we're dealing more with intermediaries managing influencers. They do cost a bit more, but the quality of work is there, and honestly the time saved is often worth it.
Okay, great. And I had one question, if you don't mind, as well, is like, obviously social media is a place where there can be like really passionate fans, but there can also sometimes be the opposite and a bit of negativity. Do you ever find that you have to deal with like toxicity and negativity within it? And if so, like, is it easy for you and your moderators and stuff to manage and deal with?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started and we had first opened the community, and no different than starting a business, you have this tremendous ability to define what your values are and sort of what your policies are. And you do need to set those up early, because if you let people run wild and there is no boundaries, it's very hard to manage when, like, where the line is. So we were very adamant at the beginning that, like, we wanted to create a safe place. We present, great forum rules. We make the moderators sign to that they're going to uphold those values. Does it mean that we don't have problems? We do have a cannabis game, and some people don't like cannabis. And the reality is that online, when you have forums, there is a lot of negative and poor behavior. As a business, we made the commitment that our values and our policies come first over, it doesn't matter, whether you're a paying player or not. If you breach those values, we do boot you out of the game. And I think that you have to do that. You have to make that as a business case. And even with the challenges in the world we're going through today, as a business, you don't have to be political, but you do need to define your boundaries, and you do need to stand for something and make sure that you continue to uphold those.
Yeah, that was part of why I wanted to ask, because I just like you say, I think the important thing is obviously the value side of it, and it's sort of saying like these aspects are unacceptable and having everyone agree to that, so that everyone's welcome and everyone can enjoy everything. But that's fantastic. No, great. Thank you so much for such a brilliant talk, and for joining us here. And like I say, I mean, if you're in the Discord group, then there might be some people who are a little shy to ask questions during the live talk that might want to jump in and ask you something through the Discord, or just carry on the chat. So yeah, there might be people there. But no, thank you so much. A really, really fascinating talk.